I'm Alex Michelson. This week, the issue is impeachment.
It's fundamentally wrong and in many cases illegal.
Fresh off the hearings, Congresswoman Karen Bass standing by to talk with us. Plus, one of the newest Democrats running for president, Deval Patrick, is here. And this husband and wife duo ready to duke it out. John and Deborah Cobalt, here we go. The issue is starts right now. And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Alex Michelson. This week, the Judiciary Committee took center stage in the impeachment hearings, as did committee member Karen Bass. She's a Democrat from Los Angeles. She's also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congresswoman Bass, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thanks for having me back.
What was the most important thing you learned this week?
It, to me, is very, very clear that we are facing a grave situation in our country, and we absolutely need to move to develop articles of impeachment.
So you're ready to vote to impeach the president?
I am ready to vote to impeach the president.
You know, on the other side, the Republicans brought this witness named Jonathan Turley, well-known law professor. He says that there's not enough proof and that this process is being rushed. Here's what he had to say.
This isn't improvisational jazz. Close enough is not good enough. If you're going to accuse a president of bribery, you need to make it stick.
Well, you know what? I was actually surprised that he was the Republican witness because I thought that he made a very, very weak case. He, in fact, said that he wasn't saying the president shouldn't be impeached. He just thought we needed more information. But one of the reasons why we will move to impeach the president is because he is obstructing everything. He is obstructing Congress. He won't allow witnesses to come forward. He won't allow information to come forward. And he is putting everything through the courts, knowing good and well that we have no idea how long it will take. And I think all of us feel an incredible sense of urgency that the reason why we need to move to impeach him and need to impeach him now is because he is intervening in the next election. The Mueller report talked about the past. Ukraine is about what is happening right now. And it's bad enough that we have to worry about the Russians intervening in our next election. We cannot tolerate the president of the United States trying to throw the election his way.
Do you realistically think that 20 Republicans are going to vote to convict and remove him in the Senate?
One scenario is there is a parliamentary maneuver that could take place that could allow for a secret ballot. If there was a secret ballot, Jeff Flake, former senator, said he thought there'd be over 30 senators that would vote to impeach. Because one thing that we all know here on the Hill is that when we talk to our Republican colleagues, when they're not in front of cameras or in front of microphones, they understand his behavior is unacceptable, inappropriate, and I frankly think they would be relieved if he was off the stage.
Well, assuming that Mitch McConnell doesn't put forth a secret ballot in this situation, most likely the president won't be convicted in the Senate. And there's some that say that this is all kind of a bit of a show, but at the same time, why not deal with issues like homelessness, issues like the USMCA trade deal? That's what the president's suggesting, that there's better use of time.
And let me just tell you something. I think that's so ironic because you know that we have passed over 400 pieces of legislation. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them have been bipartisan legislation. And it's Mitch McConnell who refuses to raise them in the Senate. And so we have been doing plenty of work. Now, let's just say it goes exactly as you say. Nothing happens in the Senate and he gets exonerated. I do think we will have put some brakes on his behavior.
Let's talk about another issue. You are the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. One of the members of your caucus, Kamala Harris, dropped out of the presidential race this week. Another member of your caucus, Cory Booker, has said that there's now more billionaires in the race than black people. Are you concerned?
Yeah.
Are you concerned about that? And if so, is there anything that should be done about that?
Well, frankly, I hated to see our senator drop out because I thought that she did a wonderful job. She made us all proud. And frankly, she made history and she broke a glass ceiling because she certainly showed that an African-American woman can be a viable, strong candidate. But at the end of the day, it takes money. Now, one of these days, I hope we can get money out of politics. I want you to know it was one of the first bills we voted for when we took over that's languishing in the Senate. But until that happens, it is all about the dollars. And so I certainly hope that Cory qualifies. I don't want to see a stage of only white candidates representing the Democratic Party, especially considering our diversity. But it is what it is.
Well, Congresswoman, we always appreciate you sharing your views. We want to point out that we reached out to the White House inviting them to share their views, and they say that they hope to have a representative on the show soon. And we like to play.
Don't hold your breath.
We like to play music on this show. So I'm playing one of my favorite songs right now, Stevie Wonder, Signed, Sealed, Deliver. So hopefully
that's great.
You can dance a little on Capitol Hill before you get back to work. We appreciate you taking time. Congresswoman Karen Bass,
good.
great to see you.
Great to see you too, Alex.
Up next, presidential candidate Deval Patrick is here with us. Stay with us. More of The Issue Is right after this. We are playing Shipping Up to Boston for our guest from Massachusetts. Deval Patrick is here as we continue our series of conversations with the presidential candidates. He was a two-term Democratic governor of Massachusetts. He served as the Assistant Attorney General of the United States, and he's now a managing partner at Bain Capital. Governor Patrick, welcome to The Issue Is.
It's good to be with you. Thank you for having me,
Nice
Alex.
to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. So you are.
Thanks for the walk-on music.
Yes, and so that's the Massachusetts song. You actually spent time living here in California.
I did.
And met your wife here in California as well.
I did indeed. That's right. Back in 1982, I came out to clerk for a year on the Ninth Circuit for Steve Reinhardt.
Yeah.
And I met my wife then.
So California's been pretty good to you.
It's been very good. 35 years we've been
say
married
that.
this year.
All right, so the presidential campaign, a lot of people, when you look at the polls, say that they're satisfied with the candidates that were there. You're still jumping into the race.
Yes.
What are you not satisfied with? What's the hole? What's missing from the field that you're going to pride?
It's a question I get a lot, but I would just say, first of all, that we were ready to go a little bit more than a year ago, ready to step out. And about 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, Alex, my wife was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And it's the sort of thing that just brings your feet back to ground. And I think we did the right thing by paying attention to that and to her. When we celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary in May, she's cancer-free.
Congratulations.
Yes, it's such a blessing. It is true, the other candidates have been out for a while and spent a lot of money and a lot of time, but it is by no means settled.
Yeah, high undecided. So what is your lane? What is the pitch? Why you over everybody else?
Well, look, we were talking earlier about homelessness, around the cost of health care and the availability of it. And solutions to those kinds of big challenges require that we build bridges. And that's what I've been about.
Do you wish you got in earlier?
I wish that my wife had never had cancer,
Yeah.
I guess is the answer.
Let's talk about some of the issues. The biggest debate that we've seen on the debate stage on the Democratic side has been over the issue of health care. And when you were Massachusetts governor, you helped to implement the system that really became the model for Obamacare around the country. Some Democrats say we need to go farther. We need Medicare for all. What say you?
I think at the federal level, rather than go to Medicare for all, I'd rather see a public option. And that public option could well be Medicare. But there is some value in having the tension that comes from government and the private sector trying to solve a similar problem.
Let's get to know you a bit, right? Because I think there are a lot of people who maybe are unfamiliar with your story, and it's quite a story. You come largely from a single mom, didn't have a super close relationship with your dad growing up. Your dad, a great jazz musician. South side of Chicago, work your way through Harvard. So what do you want people to know about your story, and so what are the most important lessons we can learn from your example?
Yeah, well, you're right. I did grow up much of that time on welfare on the south side of Chicago. And my mother and sister and I shared one of 2 bedrooms in our grandparents' 2-bedroom tenement. And we had a set of bunk beds. So you go from the top bunk to the bottom bunk to the floor every third night on the floor. I went to big, crowded, under-resourced, sometimes violent public schools. But we had a very strong sense of community because that was a time when every child was under the jurisdiction of every adult on the block. And I think that notion that you have a stake in your neighbor's dreams and struggles as well as your own has been one of the key lessons I've carried with me through my educational and professional life, my personal life for that matter.
What would that young Deval who slept in the bunk bed think of Deval today?
He'd probably say, well, I'll tell you the voice of my grandmother I hear, which is, look at you now.
Here we have a game called Personal Issues.
Yes.
This is where we put 30 seconds up on the clock. All right, here we go. Who's your favorite actor or actress?
Wow. Probably Angela Bassett. On the actress
we love
side.
her. She's
Yeah.
on Fox.
Yeah.
Favorite meal?
Ooh, roast chicken.
Favorite athlete of all time?
Probably, runner Jesse Owens. That's it.
Favorite TV show?
Right now, Black Sails.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
It's really good.
Dream vacation spot?
There is a remote part of New Zealand that my wife and I have visited a couple of times, which is pretty special.
Wow. And last question, who's your role model?
The person who maybe has had the most profound, lasting impact on me was my 6th grade teacher. The first person I remember to really help me imagine, all of us, what it might be like to be a citizen of the world, which is a gift for any kid, I think, but especially a kid from the south side of Chicago in those days.
Nice to have you
Good to
here.
be
Thank you
with
so
you.
much.
Thanks for having
We like
me.
to play music, so I picked one of my favorite songs this week, Lovely Day by Bill Withers,
Oh,
which
that's
I
a
think
good
is
one.
such a good one.
That's a good one.
Up next, husband and wife duo John and Deborah Cobalt right here. Stay with us. More of The Issue Is right after this. And this is where people get to dance if you want to show up here. Yeah. So back to back, the best way. There we go. Nice, very nice. Love and marriage can be complicated, but perhaps even more so when you disagree politically. Check out our panel this week. John Cobalt is one of the most successful radio broadcasters in the history of Southern California. The John and Ken Show can be heard weekdays on KFI AM 640 from 2 to 6 p.m. and on the iHeartRadio app. Deborah Cobalt is a journalist, philanthropist, and podcaster. Deborah Cobalt Live is available where you stream your podcast. She even had John on as a guest once. But their greatest collaboration, no doubt, is their 3 smart, successful sons. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
very
to have
much.
you guys
Thank you.
together for the first time. You've been on separately,
Yeah.
but now we can see you duke it out
Yes.
together.
We do it all the time
This
on our
is
bike rides.
terribly nerve-wracking.
All right, so let's begin with the issue of impeachment. What do you make of this week? Is this a worthy exercise? Are you glad we're having these hearings in the first place?
It's preposterous. First of all, they made the case weeks ago. Yeah, he was finagling, trying to get Ukraine to investigate the Bidens because it would help him. I think people figured that out, in about 20 minutes. But then it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. And I just don't think the majority of the country looks at it as this big felony crime.
I think it's important because if someone's doing wrong, they need to be, held up to a standard. However, I do think that it's a bit of a show from the left, and I think at the end it's going to come back and bite them.
It's a parking ticket situation, and they want to give him a life sentence in prison.
A parking ticket situation? I don't think so. It's more serious than that. However, I think this is going to end up something that, in the end, will come back to not be very favorable for the Democratic Party. But it's not a parking ticket. Come on.
Nothing happened, though.
Is nothing happened because he was caught? I mean, he ended up giving up the aid after he knew about the whistleblower report.
Right, but it's still nothing happened ultimately. So, I mean,
with
there
you.
really should be an actual crime committed. There really has to be something that happened that you could point to the body and say, look at that. Somebody did that.
Isn't attempted murder also a crime?
I'm with you, Alex. You can't just let something like this go. Again, if you just look back at the Constitution, and that way I did agree with Pelosi.
So then, Deborah, what is the Democrats to do? Because what they would argue is that the constitutional remedy, the Constitution actually mentions impeachment. It doesn't mention anything else, doesn't mention censure or anything else like that. What do you think is the remedy? What should be the slap on the wrist?
I think at this point that they've gone this far. They've got to see it all the way through. I do. And I also agree with you. You can't just let something like this go, because the next step would be that he would act on it. So that kind of behavior.
Then I would say it would be more legitimate.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can't imagine what's gone on in private phone conversations between world leaders over the years. I think if we could know what they all said, everybody would have gotten impeached and removed. I think there's kind of a real-world aspect to this, and people want to get all pompous, like some of the Congress and the senators, about this is a grave threat to the American Constitution. It's like, no, it's not. Okay, this is ordinary daily business. Every time we give aid to a country, there's a favor in return. This is a campaign tactic. And they're because they don't want to talk about the 3.5% unemployment, the record high stock market, the tax cuts that has energized the economy. Wages are up 3% this month. They don't want to talk about that. They can't run on that.
Deborah, last word to you. Why is your husband wrong?
Those unemployment numbers also include part-time workers, so you have to remember that. And why are you wrong? You have to hold our leaders accountable.
All right, well, as we head to break, one of my favorite songs from Marvin Gaye, Gotta Give It Up. I love this song. A reminder that all of our interviews are available at youtube.com/Alex Michelson. Longer versions of them. All our shows in podcast form as well. Lots of digital extras. Search for The Issue Is wherever you stream. Up next, the implosion of the Kamala Harris campaign. Stay with us.
I have come to one of the hardest decisions of my life.
This week, we said bye-bye-bye to the once promising Kamala Harris campaign. It ends before a vote is ever cast. So what happened? Back with our panel, John Cobalt, Deborah Cobalt, husband and wife duo. Deborah, what happened?
I don't like pit bull politics. And honestly, I feel like right after that debate, even though her numbers spiked up a little bit, I think people had the chance to really take a better look at her. And I don't like the way she conducted herself. And I think she just, people lost interest in her.
What do you make of?
Plus, she flip-flops.
It's weird for me because I do like what Trump is doing. So I don't look at the Democratic candidates as who would I like for president. I look at him, it's like, who could do damage against him? Who could run a good campaign? And when she first came out, I thought, oh, she could be tough because she's a prosecutor. She's really smart. You know, she can interrogate very well the way a prosecutor does. But then what really shocked me is she had no convictions on anything. When she went after Biden on the busing, 2 days later, she admitted she doesn't think busing is really that good an idea, which means you just did that to embarrass the old guy.
So I guess the question is, where do we go from here? She had most elected officials in California endorsing her. Now we have the California primary coming up. Bernie Sanders in a poll this week ahead in the LA Times poll for the first time in California. How do you see this impacting our state here?
It wouldn't surprise me if he won. Bernie's strength is, and which is why he's doing better than Elizabeth Warren here and better than Kamala Harris, is he's been flat out honest about his insanity right from the beginning. He goes out and says, you know what, this is going to be $50 trillion in taxes. Yes, the government's going to completely run the healthcare system. Elizabeth Warren kind of dances around, and for weeks and weeks she wouldn't say how much it was going to cost. And Kamala Harris kept changing her mind. He's so authentic that even though he's nuts, people appreciate it. I know what I'm getting here.
So you said you're concerned, you're looking at who could be the toughest for Trump. Who do you think's the toughest for Trump?
I think Pete Buttigieg would really be hard for Trump to run against.
Why is that?
Because he wouldn't take the bait. He'd keep his cool, he'd stay calm, he'd always be on point and intelligent and not crazy. He wants to do incremental changes. It's a tough target. You know, Biden's an easy target, Warren's an easy target. Buttigieg would do a rope-a-dope on Trump.
What do you think, Deborah?
I think it would be Biden, because people know Biden. And I happen to like Buttigieg very, very much, and I align myself the most with his politics, but I think Biden would be the one to be more difficult for Trump.
All right, we've talked a lot about politics, but what I think is really interesting about you two is that you often disagree politically, yet you have a happy marriage, or at least you seem to.
Wait a minute. Hang on.
All right, we'll go with that.
How do you pull that off in this era of polarization?
It's difficult, don't you think? I mean, we bike a lot, and usually I will bring up politics quite often, and he's like, no, we can't do this. Because
I can't do a show all day and night. Really, sometimes I feel like I got a second show when I come home at the dinner table.
No.
And I've really drawn the line of the bike rides.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll see us going up and down the bike path in Santa Monica just shouting at each other. And I said, this has got to be the break
well,
here.
that doesn't happen. I'll just go ahead of you.
One of the storms off on the other
No, but
bike.
it's not easy. And then as you mentioned, we have 3 boys, and they pretty much align more with me. So
No, they don't.
yes, you can see how this goes at home. And you should see the dinner table when no one's watching. Okay, it's quite animated.
Well, we are excited to have you, and we're grateful for all that you guys have done for our show. We've got a couple announcements we want to let people know about as well. A thank you to producer Michelle Pulfrey for the greatest holiday gift ever. Why don't you check that out? Look at that. Those are The Issue Is socks. Apparently.
You need to sell them. I want a pair.
We need a merch store, apparently. That's going to be a thing. Also excited to announce
What a Christmas gift.
that our show's actually expanding. So next week, we're going to be launching in Fox 5 San Diego. And in the new year, more markets are going to join our family. We couldn't have done it without great guests like John and Deborah, who have been so helpful throughout this entire process, and all of our viewers, and especially our small staff. This week, we end with the first song we ever played on this show. It's Say Something by Justin Timberlake and Chris Stapleton. And a thank you to our crew. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on The Issuers.
Still I don't go there. Everybody says say something, say something, say something, say something.